Welcome back to Rock Your Best Vocals. Jim here. Chord closure. Why is it so important? How do we do it? What does it sound like? Chord closure helps you sing much easier. When you're singing lighter, you're not forcing and pushing a bunch of breath up. And when you push a bunch of breath up, there two things happen. Your muscles on the side try to contract and stop all of this airflow from escaping. And the other thing is, if you're singing with too much breath, it will totally wreck your vocal folds. Here's the thing, you can sing falsetto, breathy, without pushing a bunch of air. So I'm letting my vocal folds come apart there in this really light, breathy sound. So that's breathy. Oh, that's really breathy sound, but I'm not pushing a bunch of air through. How do I do that? I'm using a couple things I've talked about before, inhalare la voce, which is inhale the voice. This feeling of like, you're inhaling instead of blowing a bunch of air out. It's such a difficult concept to get and even more difficult to master. But all of the students that I work with, they eventually get this, even though it's super, super difficult to get as a concept and as a mechanism in your body to master it. But they all get it, and singing just becomes so much easier when you do this. But chord closure is what we're going to talk about today. Why it's so important is because you get a cleaner sound with your vocal folds. You're not dumping a bunch of air. Your resonance is going to be way better if you have good chord closure. And why is resonance important? Because volume comes from resonance, not from pushing, yelling, not from being louder. You can be loud all you want and you can have terrible resonance, and it's just not going to carry through a room. I mean, even if you're using a mic, if you have good resonance, singing is just a lot easier. What does good chord closure sound like? So this is kind of the difference between falsetto and head voice. Falsetto generally has more airflow sound to it. I'm singing in falsetto. Kind of like, even if you're like Mickey Mouse kind of that's very falsetto-y. And I can even go a little more falsetto-y like that. If Mickey Mouse had good chord closure, he would sound even brighter. It's more resonant, but it's better chord closure. Do you hear how much more resonant and bright that is? Rather than if I go like this, it's kind of a little bit dull and it's loose. The chords are loose. They're flapping. There's a lot more air going through them. So how do we find this chord closure? One of the best ways I've found is to let a little bit of air through first to get the lightest. We want the lightest chord closure that we can. When your vocal folds are coming together, just very light rather than pressing them together. When you have to press them together, when you're like that, you're forcing and everything, you're really pushing your vocal folds so hard together that the mass of the vocal fold is becoming like, rather than just thin like this, it's becoming like thick. Then they have a harder time vibrating if there's a lot of mass to them. But if they're very light, they vibrate very lightly together. You get a lot more brightness out of your vocal folds. Okay, so do this along with me so you can hear when you have that light, bright vocal fold closure, because that's so important to get. So first off, we want to start with kind of a gasp position, like a deep yawn, something like that, right? Where we have a really wide open throat. And we're going to just allow a little bit of air to come out. We're not going to force air out. We're just going to, almost like you're fogging up your like glasses. When you go to clean your glasses, you just a little bit of fog on there to clean them. Or if you're smelling your breath, that, do that. But you're really, I think someone said you're really only smelling your hand. Okay. But that's the small amount of air that we want to come out. So this big, deep gasp, really wide open throat. You hear I'm just passing a little bit of air through. ha. But I find it easier to do in a higher range. Ha, ha, ah, ah. So let's contrast that sound with a less bright vocal fold closure. So if I did that same thing and I hear myself go, uh, that's me trying to make a sound. The weird thing about this is you don't want to really try to make a sound. You want to just kind of let this little bit of air come out. When you just allow the air to come out and you allow your vocal folds to come together, you'll ha, ha, ha. Once you make the noise, you can kind of lean into a little bit like ha, ha, but you want that bright vocal fold closure first. Again, if I don't pass just a tiny amount of air and I try to go that's a bit dull, right? You want to hear this just when they kind of click together. Ha, 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 ha. That if you go ha, ha, that's passing a bit too much air. I just want to back off the air as much as possible. Ha, ha, that was it. Ha, 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 ha. It could take some work to get that kind of just sense of when they just come together. But once you start to feel that, the gasp is important. Ha, because it gets everything out of the way and you'll hear that. Just to contrast that, if I was to that's too pushed. It's too kind of forced. I'm trying to make sound. I'm going it's dull, right? We want this just light and you can hear that buzz, right? When you hear the buzz, and you will hear it definitely. When you get this, you'll hear that. You'll kind of hear it click. Ha, 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 a click and the buzz. And once you get that, it'll feel like the sound is coming from just your vocal folds. When you have everything out of the way, and that is the sound of all great singers. When you get this light, bright vocal fold closure and you can work with that sound and that feeling, and you'll know that resonance is there, then singing just gets so much easier. And that's, what I want for everybody, because it's worked for me. So I hope it works for you. Let me know in the comments below how you got on with that. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Rock your best vocals where your best keeps getting better. Thanks for watching. Bye.